A fresh legal step around crypto macro matters now because classification decides the next move. The practical consequence depends on which firms, products, or users end up inside the new rule or lawsuit. Crypto market turns is the search phrase that fits this story because crypto rallied after Trump extended the Iran ceasefire, buying the market time even though the extension did not resolve the deeper conflict. That matters for firms building products, but it also matters for users because distribution, access, and consumer protections all change with the legal frame. The real problem is that procedure sounds technical, but the technical details decide who wins access and who loses flexibility. Start with the mechanism. Risk assets responded to the removal of an immediate deadline, not to a final settlement. In practice, this was a relief trade tied to geopolitical de-escalation headlines. In plain English, classification and timing matter because the rulebook decides who can offer the product, who can access it, and how risk is supervised. That is also why the wording of a bill, complaint, or ruling matters so much. A small legal distinction can redraw an entire product category. That is why a move like this can look exciting on the surface and still carry far more risk once you ask who is actually providing the liquidity, the capital, the legal cover, or the operational support. The context matters too. Bitcoin moved back towards $78,000 while major altcoins and selected midcaps turned broadly green after the extension. That backdrop is important because policy changes rarely arrive all at once. They arrive in steps, and each step can shift market expectations. A timeline slip or a narrow amendment can matter more than a dramatic speech. For people searching crypto market turns, that bigger backdrop is useful because it explains why this story landed now instead of last month. But context is not the same thing as proof. Here is the split between what is firm and what still needs more evidence. Crypto rallied after Trump extended the Iran ceasefire, buying the market time even though the extension did not resolve the deeper conflict. It is still unclear whether Tehran will produce a unified proposal, whether talks resume, or whether the next deadline simply recreates the same risk. That is the line between a headline that grabs attention and a legal outcome that actually changes market structure. Viewers can easily mistake a live headline, a chart move, or a product announcement for a complete answer when it may only be the first visible piece. So who feels this first? That matters for firms building products, but it also matters for users because distribution, access, and consumer protections all change with the legal frame. In practical terms, the market is now being asked to price not only the headline event, but also the follow-through. Execution risk, adoption risk, liquidity quality, legal clarity, or recovery credibility, depending on how the next few sessions unfold. If the follow-through is weak, firms delay launches, users lose access, and capital waits on the sidelines. That is where legal language starts influencing product roadmaps and user options in the real market. The next procedural signal to watch is this. Watch the next diplomatic deadline and any shift in shipping or oil risk, because that is what decides whether the bounce has a macro tailwind or loses it. For this video, the most useful close is a concrete one. Watch the next diplomatic deadline and any shift in shipping or oil risk, because that is what decides whether the bounce has a macro tailwind or loses it. If that signal appears, the story gets stronger. If it does not, the current read can fade quickly. The next clean read on crypto market turns is not a louder slogan. It is whether the next measurable step confirms the same pressure, demand, or trust signal that made this headline matter in the first place.